Let's take a look at how to rewrite the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Let me first remind you what slope-intercept form is. Slope-intercept form of a line is y equals mx plus b, where b gives you the y-intercept, m is the slope, x and y are both variables. Now before we begin, let me remind you of something here. If we wanted to add two fractions, such as 3/5 plus 1/5, then since these have the same denominator, I could combine those over the 5, and on top I would add the 3 and the 1, so I'd have 3 plus 1 over 5, which is the same thing, of course, as 4 over 5. Now, when you go to convert an equation to slope-intercept form, we'll use this property many times, but in the reverse, okay, which maybe you're not as comfortable with or familiar with. So for example, what I mean by that is, if the left side up here equals the right side, then the right side also equals the left side. So what I want to do now is analyze what's happening in this version. In this version, what happens is the things that are being added, or even if this was subtraction, you could split this fraction up into two fractions where the 3 goes over the 5 separately, and then the 1 goes over the 5. So you get 3 over 5 plus 1 over 5 as two separate fractions. So that's a property we'll exploit many times as we're trying to write equations in this form. It's also true that if you see this fraction, 2x over 3, that's the same thing as 2/3 times x. Okay, let's look at y. If we just want to look at 2/3 times x, we could write it like this. And x is the same thing as x over 1. So when you multiply those straight across, you get 2x over 3. So 2/3 x is the same thing as 2x over 3. We will more commonly take the x off of the top and put it out to the side to get 2/3 x. Or, as I've done up here, 2x over 3 rewrite as 2/3 x, like this. Okay, so that's another property we'll use quite a bit in completing this process. So here's an equation of a line. Because x is to the first power and y is to the first power, this is a linear equation, two variables, two dimensions, and gives us a line if we were to graph it. And so I want it in slope-intercept form. So I want it to look like this equation up here. So if you notice, what's unique about this equation is that y is all by itself. So that's what we're going to try to do, is solve this equation for y. So the first thing we want to do is subtract 3x from both sides. So we get negative 7y. And up here, notice the x comes first. So when I subtract 3x, I'll put the negative 3x here, and then I'll put the plus 4 on the end so that it looks more like this equation. Finally, to get y by itself, I need to divide both sides by negative 7. So y equals negative 3x plus 4 over negative 7. And now we're going to use one of those properties we discussed before, where we will take and split this fraction up and put each of the two terms on top over the denominator. Okay? So that's going to give us y equals negative 3x over negative 7 plus 4 over negative 7. Alright? Finally, we're almost done. One more step. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so this is positive now. And we want the x on the top to come out to the side so that it becomes 3/7, so it's positive 3/7 x. Remember, the x can go on top or on the side, and we like it on the side so that we recognize the 3/7 here as your slope. Finally, a positive divided by a negative is a negative, so this becomes subtraction of 4/7. So your slope is 3/7, your y-intercept is negative 4/7. And we now have converted this equation to slope-intercept form.